Hey friends, welcome back. I am Jason, and I've got a couple of medical professionals behind me, and we're discussing whether you should buy it or build it.
All right, Joe, I guess we have to give our first impression on this bag. Now, I don't have any experience with this kit, do you?
Nope.
I have not looked at it online. I don't know anything about it as far as the contents. This did come with it, though, right? And so this is a guide that shows us what is inside the kit. But before we get started, I mean, for me as a medic, I don't know, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of the same opinions, etc. I typically stay away from prefab kits, just because as a former first responder, I know I'm really funny about what I carry in the kit, and it needs to be purpose built for whatever it is that you're doing. Like, you have combat experience, so.
I do, but I can kind of look at it one of two ways. One, there's what I'm going to specifically use, and in that case, I like to tailor it to what I want.
Right.
And then second is I kind of have the, is it good enough for me to just buy one for every vehicle, for every tent or something like that, and sometimes it is. So I could go either way. So if you're, I guess I would have to divide my opinion up to what I specifically plan to use versus what I'm okay just kind of as a general issue item to the folks at large.
I hear you. Now, something that has given me a little bit of hope is before the video, we were told that a paramedic put this together.
Sure.
So I have a hope that the contents inside of the kit are going to be good. But I do want to say something before we even get started. I don't really care what is in the bag if you don't have the training.
Yeah, that's the big part,
right?
Is there's invariably skills and to some extent there's scope of practice. I think if we're dealing with a paramedic, scope of practice has a role to play in it. But for the everyday consumer, the more skills you have, the more effective the medical items.
All right, agreed.
And one thing to add on to that is, maybe, I don't know if you can hear me. I'll pop in real quick. And one thing to add on to that, I'm using their microphones. That's why I'm getting so close to my friend Joe here. I like being close to him just in general, but this makes it, you know, it's a valid reason. Anyway, the SOP for like your first responders is dictated not only by the demand of what's happening, like the emergency that's happening, but also insurance and liability.
Oh my God, the red tape is ridiculous.
And all of the things, right? But if we're talking about average Joes, right, like outside, I need to save my little girl's life. I don't care about liabilities or insurance.
Right.
So
they have their good Samaritan
So that
rights.
might dictate some of the stuff that's in there as well, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Probably.
Okay, so I think there's this one main compartment here, which I think he is considering it, or JumpMedic is considering it to be a jump bag, right? Which is what the name implies. And then I think that this package right here is so that you can pack components from the jump bag, like if you wanted to throw an accessory kit into your bag if you were going hiking or a small trip or something like that. So, I mean, that was the first thing that I saw with the kit.
I'm not a fan of these style bags. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just I've just found over time they're not exactly user friendly.
It's a lot of bulk too for a kit.
I was mentioning before that in the practical world, there's this tendency of the EOD guys using medical bags, the medical guys using commo bags, and the commo guys using. It's because a lot of these purpose-built designs are for a specific purpose, and you typically find yourself in general purpose settings. And
somebody that has this, they may not have the experience to actually put it together.
No, agreed. And I think what happens is you have a habit of filling the bag.
Just filling it up.
Just filling it up
right.
for the sake of filling it up.
Exactly.
Whereas I like the size of this for like a team level bag. I don't know that every individual person needs to have it, but if I had a group of 10 or 12 guys, maybe one person carries this,
Right.
you know, and everybody else carries their smaller subsets. But I like the dimensions of it. It's something I could probably
Kind of the
throw in
same
my
dynamic
ruck.
as the team. Like I would carry the jump bag, and all of the individual people on my team, they would have their IFAKs.
Right, it'd be fine for a car, you know, ATV, a boat.
Well, let's take a look and see what's on the outside first, because the things that I'm looking for in a kit like this is, number one, is it tactically efficient, right? And is it intuitive to use, right? Because if we just got this bag thrown at us and we don't have any idea what's in the bag. So I guess the very first thing that I want to see is, what's on the outside of the bag. And then on the front of the bag, we've got trauma shears here. I don't know about that myself, but
It's for repelling.
Mm-hmm.
they look like they're adequate. They would
That's
work,
enough.
right?
Even cheap trauma shears, if you're not using them routinely and you just set them aside for cutting clothes, they'll get the job done.
Yeah. I'm gonna put this off here a little bit so we can start adding stuff into it or whatever.
So the outside pouch has got a blood pressure cuff and a stethoscope. It makes sense if it's packed by a paramedic.
Right.
When I try to divide bags or my medical kit into two categories: trauma and then snivel meds or sick call, because I don't want to be digging through a pile of Motrin to get to life-saving stuff. So it makes sense to me. Paramedics use these, not that we wouldn't, but paramedics use these frequently for diagnostics. If you're just going to run up to some random, some person who fainted or something, as opposed to a trauma patient. Like for me, if it's an emergency bag, like I want tourniquets and right now stuff kind of readily accessible and on the outside. And some of the diagnostic stuff that I can take my time doing,
on your secondary survey.
Kind of dig in later.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then the next thing that I see here is a light. Pretty bright. As far as checking pupillary response, I don't know. I think that's a pretty bright flashlight, actually. It's small, though. It would make a great pocket flashlight. It's a lot
It's
like
fine. It's got a
Jason's.
clip on it, and I would think, like, again, first impressions is something I could put on the bill of my hat and go white light if I had to deal with a patient at night.
Right. Let's see what's in here on this side
tourniquet.
pocket.
All right,
there we go.
All right.
But it's still in the package, but it's the responsibility of the user of the kit to go ahead and get this prepared. And it is an official CAT tourniquet as well, which I'm totally digging that.
So for me, I get it. If I wasn't buying these and I was otherwise agency sponsored, I'd probably unwrap this and prep it. But just for at-home use and general use, I would prefer to keep them in the wrapper so that I know that they're not trained on and compromised and tested on. Again, if I had my own aid bag and I do, but if my own aid bag at the house, I'll probably have some of these staying in the wrapper just so that I know that they're okay. And on my personal kit, I would have one or two kind of speed prep for time. Does that make sense?
And I think that's just based on experience.
Yeah, because at $30, $35 a pop, depending on what the going rate is, you kind of get tired of replacing them. So leaving them in the wrappers is more of a logistics issue.
Here we have a CPR face shield, and it looks like it is on a small carabiner right there. I typically don't worry about that. As long as I get 100 compressions per minute, that's all I'm really worried about.
I don't really worry. Now, if it's a family member, fine. If it's something I medically trust, but I still operate under the premise that everybody has AIDS.
Yep.
So I'm going to use compressions over, compressions and breaths.
And that's another thing too. Unless you're in the industry, these things are changing all the time too. And it really depends on how many textbooks they're selling through whatever agency.
I try not to speak on whatever would be the protocol du jour, because it is constantly changing. But CPR in general, you again, there's various protocols. As long as you're getting the correct compressions are what's important.
Yep. And you want to explain to them while I try to get this off why you need 100 compressions per minute?
Well, it's about circulating blood to the brain is fundamentally what we're trying to do. But when you're getting the correct compression depth and rate, you're also getting passive air exchange in the lungs. So you do achieve some breathing.
An adequate amount, basically, for it, short of obstructions and all the other things as well that could potentially happen.
But it's been shown that it's the circulation to the brain that's most important.
Correct.
Over adequate respiration. So this works, and it's probably good that it's in here, because in most cases, you're on the street and you're having to do legitimate, not field medicine. You have to stick to real CPR stuff. So if you need the face shield, it's good that it's there. But
it's there.
If I'm going to go up to a random stranger, we're not locking lips.
No, that's not happening. The next thing that was on the bag is a whistle. This is similar in size to the Wazoo whistle, but I can see that it's not exactly the same quality. But I mean,
a rescue whistle is a rescue whistle.
Yep, I don't know. Let's see what else is in the bag, though, because it does have one more compartment up here in the front. Oh, your instructions. Oh, so it looks like it does have is that a pulse ox? Yep. So that's good. At least I'm reassured that that's in there. We have a first aid guide. You should have gone through this beforehand, just so that we're clear on that. But it's nice to have that. Sometimes in an emergency, people forget stuff, especially if they aren't used to doing it all the time.
It's worth pointing out that, let's say you're going to rely on the pulse ox that's in the bag. You do need to pull it out, all the diagnostic stuff, and make sure the batteries
are up and all that.
And it works, and don't just take it for granted that it's
even
ready
as a
to go.
pro. So there's the user guide for that as well. You should know how to use one of those, but that could be your best friend as far as diagnostics go. Oh, there's one more. What we got? Oh, cool. All right, so, first aid stuff, if you've got to write a handoff report to somebody, which is nice. I don't know, this would all depend on their scope of practice if they're doing their primary and secondary surveys, but I know for me as a professional in the field, I've written on I don't know how many people on their foreheads or their arms or whatever. It's nice to have a Sharpie. I like that it's in the kit.
Yeah, sometimes for some injuries, there's not much you can do for the patient in the field, but the best thing you can do for the patient is provide the follow-on echelon of care with high-quality vital signs and patient data over time.
And it could be as simple as something like, they broke their arm and where did the swelling start, and then you have a map.
Or you get somebody
swelling.
who's unconscious with a head injury and giving me a play-by-play of their vital signs, every 5 to 10 minutes of their respirations and blood pressure. When you hand him off to me, goes a long way towards whether or not the patient's going to go under the knife or if he's going to just get a lot of, medication in an ICU.
So these are the components that were on the front and the sides of the kit. And I think I can see now how this comes apart. I think we might need to move this stuff up here so we can lay the kit out. So it looks like we've got one zipper on this side, another zipper on the other side, and then Velcro. And check this out. It opens up.
That's pretty clever.
That is pretty cool. I like that. It looks like everything is easily accessible. Gauze, tape. Looks like the gloves here are at the top. Now this is always a problem for me with kits. I don't know about you, but I have double XL hands, and so I have to carry my own on me. I've got them on my belt right now. But these gloves that tend to come in these kits, typically these will go into people's cars. They're affected by heat over time, and the gloves will rip and tear. Matter of fact, I think Jason you had an incident recently, right, where your gloves ripped, right, when you were trying to put them on?
Bloody dude, gloves did not work.
Right. Yeah. So, they do have included gloves. I'm kind of interested to see what size these are. They're large.
Yeah, just like the electronics, it's one of those devices you need to make sure are properly sized and would work for you.
Right.
In a time of need.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. I'm already seeing some stuff that I like in the kit. Oh, is that a ring cutter?
Mm-hmm.
Huh, that's cool. That is not typical. I don't ever see those in kits very often.
I used to keep them somewhere. I used to keep one around. Yeah, maybe not in my right now kit, but there was always one available because, I'll tell folks, hey, don't wear your rings out if you're going to do something dynamic. It's kind of the same rule, like you shouldn't probably wear your wedding rings if you're using power tools.
Yep.
it's okay to get the little rubber ring, because we will and we can, but you don't want us to cut your ring off if we have to.
No, that would be terrible.
My wife had to get her ring cut off.
Oh yeah,
it
happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
So if you're finding yourself in a position where you think you're risking injury, hey, put it on a necklace, and if there's a belief issue associated with it, then get the little Kalo rubber rings. But cutting them off is, when you need to cut them off, only a ring cutter will do. So
well, I think we should start at the top here, because we do have quality tape. It's 3M products here that they've got on the cling wrap. That's easily accessible.
As far as tape is concerned, it depends on what you're going to use it for. If you're just using it for boo-boos, that's fine. But none of that tape is worth a darn for chest seals or anything significant.
We don't see
none of it's any good.
Anything else here, which that is a primary concern of mine.
And it's fine for, like I said, boo-boos, right? But no medical tape. I don't even know why they sell it as medical tape. Medical tape in general is just awful.
Yep.
So it's fine for boo-boos. And as far as like the Coban goes, Coban's always great, but when it's in a bag for too long, it compresses and you can't undo it. And it's got very limited use. Like you can use it for boo-boos, but you can't use it for trauma because it's not elastic, and if the tissue swells, it'll create a tourniquet.
Yep.
So I'm not saying get rid of it. It's great for splints. It's great for sprains if you're careful.
This all goes back to training,
but
too.
But really, at the end of the day, if you're in a pinch, you're never going to get the thing unwound. So I don't even bother.
Well, let's go ahead and dive in a little bit further.
So this is a situation where building versus buying. What would you put in there instead?
I
just have another ace wrap.
Yeah, I use ace wrap, and I also carry Gorilla Tape in my kit as well. It
That's
tends
not a bad idea,
to stick better than this
Zip
stuff.
tape? You ever use that?
I have
That's
used
amazing.
tape. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
I would replace like the function of the Coban. I would just carry extra, because there's nothing ace wrap can't do.
The thing is, in real life, it's a lot uglier than people realize. Like, they watch videos and people do these really nice, neat wrap jobs and this and that. I mean, most of the time, if I was on a disaster scene, for example, it was mostly like improvise whatever you can with what you got, and we'll fix you later at the hospital.
As far as tape is concerned, yeah, some of the more industrial tape is kind of handy. But like if you're going into a situation knowing you have to make a seal, like whether it's around, not that the layman would, but around an airway or depending on the chest injury, there's times where you just need a seal. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, I would bring something specifically for a seal, like an EKG paddle.
Can you read that? I can't even read that.
No, I don't have my glasses.
I don't have my glasses either.
Looks like just tissue.
We should have got our glasses for this, probably.
Looks like just tissue.
That's what it looked like to me. I mean, we could use it for...
Again, if it's just a general first aid kit and somebody's got the sniffles, I guess, I don't know.
Here's one that is important, a triangular bandage. I like to have those in my kit for sure. So
packing versus buying, the civilian versions of these aren't that great. They're very thin and very cheap. And the military brown ones, if you can still get them, the cravats are the superior of the two products.
Yeah.
But
I use a Shemagh.
This is fine for slinging swath and doing random stuff, but I don't know that it's going to have the strength if you thought you were going to make a tourniquet out of this, unless you really
No,
wrap
that's not
it up.
happening, Joe. We can go ahead and say that.
You could with the military cravat just fine.
Now, they do provide you with one razor as well.
Yeah, sometimes if you're making a seal, you may have to shave some chest hair.
But once again, if you're in those kind of circumstances, it is generally a dirty process. Like it's ugly. It's not like.
Well, that's why I found like again, if you know you're getting, if it's within your skill set to do a procedure that requires some type of seal, just bring something for a seal, right?
Right.
Like the defibrillator paddles are great because they're thick and they're designed to stick to sweaty, hairy chests. What's that stuff we
Yeah,
used to
you got to
use
have
for
the
charges?
right gear, though. That's another thing, too, like you were talking about. The quality of the products that you're using in those situations.
But I forget what it's called. It's Hydra Seal, Hydra whatever. We used to use it to stick charges to the wall. Anyways, the glue is all that matters. It's just the glue.
Right, the adhesive is what matters.
You can even use rat traps. Those rat traps you get.
Yes,
you know,
that would be as far as improvising. Yeah, that would be perfect.
It's the glue.
All right, so it looks like here we have our standard bandages. You got finger condoms in there. It looks like, is that super glue right there?
Yeah.
I think. We have
this is liquid skin. Look, it's either a love-hate relationship. I'm not a fan of it because you typically put it in smaller wounds and it dries and it does its job. But my experience is the patient will complain that you basically, as it fractures, it feels like you got glass in your boo-boo.
It does hurt.
So pain is the patient's problem, so I don't know if it's worth switching out, but food for thought. But it's good to have a wound care
small
kit.
package right here too, as far as the Band-Aids go.
And that'd be fine for me. Usually I make folks carry their own stuff, their own Band-Aids.
They should have their own individual
and
first aid kits.
Soap and water and Band-Aids. There's no reason they can't do that.
Let's keep diving in here. It looks like we have a disposable scalpel.
Is it a 10 or an 11? As long as it's a 10, it's useful.
It does not say, and I can't see it because of the guard.
Looking at it, it looks like a 10.
10.
There's nothing wrong with an 11, but
Visine.
if you had to choose, pick a 10.
If I'm going to be actually treating a patient, I've got to irrigate their eye. I'm going to be using like a syringe, like we have here with sterile water.
Yeah, and I get sterile.
Follow up
It
with
depends on the setting. Like they've done culture studies, and you're totally fine just using tap water.
Yep.
But it's the solution to pollution is dilution. So copious amounts of irrigation is the answer.
Correct.
And this
Write
is
that
nice
down.
if you've got. I
That's
mean,
not
basically
enough.
allergies, but this isn't enough. I mean,
is not
there's
enough.
nothing wrong with the solution. The solution's fantastic, but it isn't remotely close to the volume that you need.
This is cool.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm okay with that. It's small, rather small.
unless you, I don't know, it may be in here somewhere, but unless you got like saline locks and stuff, I mean, the idea, I guess, would be that you would use it for some type of seal. They would work, but like you said, it's small.
Right. And then I have a love-hate relationship with this stuff too. Bleed stop. I talked about this pretty extensively in my last video. What goes in has to come back out. Some people may not realize that
Well,
with bleed stop. There is a use for it. There is a place for it. I think it gets used improperly because of improper training.
yeah, so if we go back to say like combat gauze and HemCon and those type of agents, they're supposed to enhance and add to your hemorrhage control abilities, not replace it.
Right.
So what I typically find is when the layman or the amateur is trying to use some type of bleeding control product, they spend more time trying to get the product to work
Exactly.
as opposed to getting hemorrhage control, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely,
Like
I'm with you 100%.
an oh so subtle difference, and I'm trying to control the bleeding versus I'm trying to get the combat gauze to work.
Right. And they may not know all the protocol that goes with it anyway. Like they don't have any experience in that field.
But if you get like road rash or you get like some type of avulsion or degloving, some of those smaller hemorrhage control things are kind of nice.
This would be nice for, especially if somebody doesn't have experience in the field. Maybe they don't have the ability to feel somebody's pulse. They don't know how to take a pulse properly.
so we take it for granted that we can do vital signs.
Yep.
And the pulse ox, you know, listen, the number for the percentage they give you is convenient. But if I can just stick this on and I can get a pretty accurate pulse, that's really what I want to have.
I think that's just a lanyard for the pulse ox. And then it looks like we have some non-aspirin here in this package. I'm glad. I think we should open this up because it looks like there's multiples in here. Typically, first aid kits are just full of single-use packets, right? This one looks like it has a couple. Yeah, we've got a small selection of stuff here. This is pretty typical of the stuff that you see. There's ibuprofen, acetaminophen.
Yeah, I think there's some antidiarrheals
lip balm,
in there.
antidiarrheals for sure, which you
Antihistamines.
certainly need.
It's good,
Diphenhydramines in
it's
here.
good stuff to have.
This is good. Yeah, all this stuff's good.
It's a snivel kit.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. And I like the fact that he packed it in one package instead of having all these windows with all the individual.
Yeah,
You
if
don't need
I'm
to get to
dealing
this
with
fast.
a general audience or a group as a whole, I would rather have boxes of single serving packets that I can divide up evenly.
Exactly.
Basically do the same thing that he's doing there.
Oh, this is good.
But of over-the-counter medication so that they can do it themselves.
A lot of people don't know what these are. These are biohazard bags. When you get done working on somebody, you got to have somewhere responsible to put that stuff. And you can improvise it with all sorts of stuff, right? It's nice to have one of these in the kit. There's other things you can improvise, though, with this as well. Like,
Look, it's useful, and especially if a paramedic packed this, it makes perfect sense to me that I'd put it in there. So I've got no critique or complaint. But a sharps container, it is not.
good. No, it is not. Absolutely not.
Not that. Look, whoever packed it knows that,
Right.
and they didn't put it in there to do that. I think I say that for the, random person. Maybe they use the number 10 scalpel or some irrigation needles.
That is not a good idea.
It's
That'll
not.
put the
If you stick it in there,
guard
it's just
back
gonna
on.
cut the bag.
I'm going to go ahead. I put everything back in the kit
Sure.
so that we don't have stuff thrown all over the place or whatever. But, here we go. I mean, we got ace bandages. This is interesting to me.
This isn't big enough.
No.
Like, it's fine for a wrist or a kid, but even with little kids, your 4 to 6 inch ace wraps will still work for them. So it's kind of like picking one ace wrap that would work for everything. Again, there is some utility to this. I don't want to say it's not.
I would
it's
want
not
a lot
useless.
more than that, though.
But yes, I would want at a minimum a 4 inch or 6
At
inch ace
least.
wrap at least
Yeah.
to kind of get.
Now, here's something that's interesting. This is an NPA, or a nasopharyngeal, right here. You need training for this. I see that it does come with the lube attached to it, at least. You can make things worse in a trauma scenario, like if they had some kind of brain trauma, for example. You need training on this sort of thing. I'm glad to see that it's an NPA instead of an OPA.
Yeah,
'Cause this
so
is for our average Joe.
in the military, we went with the MPA because there's an overall convenience of it. And when you're dragging casualties through the woods, it's
Right.
less likely to dislodge, etc.
There's also different sizes. I know a lot of people probably aren't familiar with that.
I prefer, let me see this one. I prefer the, this one's pretty rigid, which is nice if this is appropriately sized for your patient. But the ones, because the softer ones have a habit of clenching off or
Clenching
occluding when, if the nares is too small. But
We're getting a little bit too in depth for them. We're trying to keep it, on the.
I
level
think
here.
if you get one that's long enough, because you can always cut it.
I agree with you 100%. But
so
then you
it's
have to
mostly
know how to
about the
measure
length.
too, as well. You gotta know what you're doing.
They're not that difficult to use. I've always been confident training up random Joe soldier and of course practice. I'm not suggesting anybody at home do this, but I've always felt confident enough at training random folks in how to do it, practicing on each other, and then sending them out the door with it. And that's always been
Which
good.
is a really strange feeling for your first time.
Yeah,
Actually.
I've trained Americans, foreigners. They're pretty easy to learn.
Okay, let's look in here though. Okay, it looks like we got some spray bottles. Like if you need to wipe your dry erase board.
What is it?
I don't know. Let's see here. I got one more too.
Well, for wound care, I
Yeah,
get it.
I figure. Now here's one, burn spray. Burn spray. What else do we have in there?
I'm skeptical of any,
Hydrogen peroxide.
unless you have immediate
Isopropyl
access to
alcohol.
EMS, I'm skeptical of almost all burn dressings and
I am
sprays.
too, 100%.
So I don't mind that it's in there. Again, if you're just pulling this out and you burned yourself on a camping trip, great.
There is something to be said too about when a patient
It's
thinks
intended use.
that it's going to help them as well. The
Yeah,
placebo effect.
it's intended use.
I've
has a
tried
lot
to
do
explain
with it.
things to patients before in the past when they're trying to debate with you or argue with you in the field, and they may not be in their right mind. They just heard it somewhere.
Sure.
And, I'm trying to inform them what the newest protocol is. Like, we're using dry sterile dressings for this, type of burn or whatever. So sometimes I have found that it's just better to give it to them in the field so they don't, because they
I've
don't
been
know.
known to treat the patient and not the problem.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Thanks for saying it like that too, because I was struggling in my mind with that one. What do we got in this little kit right here? Let's take a look at this one.
The,
Glucometer, maybe?
yeah.
That's exactly what
they're
it is.
important to have because Americans are generally just a high diabetic population.
This is good.
And you're likely to encounter some type of diabetic episode,
Yes.
just in general terms. And having a very basic diagnostic tool is very helpful.
I think this is good. I like that. I like that that was in this kit.
So for a public population, it's probably good to have in there.
Okay, put that back and we'll continue on down the line. Oh, well.
There is the hyphen.
Yep. Chest seal, twin pack. That is cute. I've never seen one this small. Have you ever seen one of these this small? These are splints, by the way, just in case
for
you
a
don't
finger
know.
or a toe.
Yeah.
I mean, they're useful.
And this is a larger one, which you could use on an arm or maybe a leg. Let's see. This one's 24 inches.
You can get pretty creative with a SAM splint.
Yeah, SAM splints are awesome. I like SAM splints myself, personally. I don't see anything else in that packet, though, but that's where that goes. What else we got here on the outside? We got an emergency bandage here.
And compressed gauze.
And compression gauze.
To me, this is something all right, I don't know what this emergency dressing is, but there's this new fad where, it's not new, it's been happening for a few years now, but there's this fad where we've added gauze or we've added clips and stuff to basically just ACE wraps. And in my experience is, there's only one addition to the ACE wrap that has ever made sense. And every so often down, and I forget who makes this, they'll have a little tacks of Velcro so that if you accidentally let go of it, your whole ACE wrap doesn't unroll. Now that's great. But all this other stuff, like the clips and the bandages, I don't know really, in my experience, don't actually add to the...
That one's kind of a funky...
Yeah, it's like the old Israeli dressing. So to me, just ACE wraps. Just ACE wraps, ACE wraps, ACE wraps. Because at the end of the day, most of those pads and clips don't actually work.
They don't work under stress, is what I find.
They don't suck. I just don't know that it's worth the extra $2 per dressing.
Let me put that right underneath here, which is the way I had it.
Like if I had to buy 100 dressings, I don't know that I'm getting my value out of it.
An ABD pad.
Now, and I got my trauma hat on, but to me, if you got an evisceration or some type of bowel, evulsion of some kind, it's very hard to make up stuff that you need, but your primary concern is the drying out of the guts. And some of these purpose-built dressings are tailor-made to help you manage a wound like an ab issue. Doesn't mean you can't make it up. Doesn't mean you can't use other stuff, but something this small might be very helpful. I don't know, and it's cheap. It's cheap enough. I don't.
Maybe the initial, but you're just going to be stacking stuff on there anyway.
It depends. Most of the time, like I've seen avulsions or eviscerations one of two ways. Some type of through and through gunshot wound where I'm getting a little bit of herniation, and that's manageable. I can usually just staple that shut. Or legit, they were attacked by a velociraptor and their guts are hanging out. There's like no in between.
No.
If their guts are just hanging out, well, there's not much you have in an A bag that's going to help. That's going
no. Ensues he's going to die before he gets.
But that through and
anyway.
through, where you're getting a little bit of herniation, keep it dry, or excuse me, keep it moist.
Well, let's see how hot things are getting in here. It looks like we have our standard thermometer, which
look, it's fine, especially if it's a first aid kit as opposed to a trauma kit. You're going to be diagnosing a lot of oohies and owies, and I think I'm sick, and an oral thermometer's fine.
And what is a first aid kit without your space age technology filled with NASA juice? I think all of us have love-hate relationships with these things, but I have used them I don't know how many times.
I keep them around because at a bare minimum, they're a barrier between your patient and Mother Earth, and Mother Earth will suck the heat out of your patient faster than anything.
I have used them many times.
So I keep them around.
Let's see, what else we got here? Oh, hot hands. I'm going to hold this stuff here in this hand. Hot hands, these are great, yeah. If you got a patient, and these are the super warmers too, which I would much rather see those than the small toe ones or the small
Yeah,
hand
if you're
ones.
dealing with a hypothermia patient, you know, being able to stick something like this.
God, there's
When it
so
comes
much
to
in
body
this one.
heat, it's about you know, maintaining their body temperature more than it is restoring their body temperature. And the ability to stick a warmer in somebody's armpits or in their groin
And to bring them up slowly.
and bring them up, or on their temples. You know, if you
Yeah.
stick them on their temples, that works too.
We used to use people's forearms too because of the blood vessels being close to the top of the skin right here.
Yeah, the
like
neck
the old
works
kangaroo
great.
method. You know, this would be great for that kind of thing right there.
But they're good.
Looks like we got instant cold packs here. He actually has a couple of them in the kit.
I think if you're at a soccer game, fine.
Yeah, sure. We've also got, of course, the famous masks. There's 4 of them. I don't know what these are actually rated at. A lot of people, I think, don't understand what masks are for. Like, they kind of get confused. Is that protecting me, or is that protecting the first responder?
Yeah, and I think incidents as of late have confused people
that.
even more. But I don't see any harm in a first aid kit of
No.
having a couple around.
No, and these are about 40 microns for those of you that were wondering. Now, if you take the size of the COVID virus, which was 0.006 microns, do the math. That's all I'm going to say about that. Vomit bag. I don't think I've ever gotten a patient to actually vomit in the bag. It's
No,
usually
but
on me.
You know, if I get somebody who's in the zone, you know, I'll hand them something.
Like as a comfort item,
Yeah.
or whatever. There was a lot of stuff that was in that compartment right there, actually. And that looked like, I'm going to say this is my first thing. That was a lot of stuff to put into that one compartment, right? I'm not going to say that's an afterthought. What I'm saying is that we have different areas in there.
Yeah, he seemed to make use of the space well.
Right, so he did make use of the space. All right, you want to take it from here, from the top of this bottom portion here?
Yeah, I guess, so we got some saline solution here for sterile and saline solution. I don't have a problem with them being in here. Again, if you're just doing like first aid at like soccer camp or on a day out, that's probably enough to clean it. But at the end of the day, if you're really dealing with cleaning the wound, volume, right?
Yep. Which
So-
is why we're always talking about water bottles.
So the biggest thing for doing this is going to be the syringe and these needles.
What
And-
gauge needles do you have there?
look like
20 gauge,
Yeah.
probably.
So what the needles are good for is when they create turbulence, and that kind of knocks off the crud a bit. But this syringe and these needles will go a long way towards really cleaning a wound out. I can't
You're
tell.
not going
I don't
into
have
the
my glasses.
intercostal space of one of these, by the way, in case somebody
They
wants to
don't-
bring that up.
I don't have my glasses, but I think these are just hard needles. I don't think they're capped. I
not.
would prefer to see catheters because they're flexible, but there's nothing wrong with the hard needle for irrigation.
See if I can see
But this
that one.
syringe, yeah, here, if you got a magnifying glass. That's the problem when blind people are doing it. But syringe is a big deal towards irrigating. You know, the ring cutter we've kind of discussed. You got a variety of 4x4 gauze. This isn't going to be for trauma. This is going to be mostly for just generalized wound care. And when you're dealing with when you're just taking care of a herd of people, if you will, most of it's going to be boo-boos. Look, I cut myself. What did I do? You know, that type of stuff. It's not always going to be trauma. So these
Those
are
are
good
the
things
people
to
that
have.
you're enlisting to help you. They don't realize it, but we're about to give you a job.
You know, stretch gauze is okay. I think this boils down to preference. You know, what you like to use when you're doing wound care. I'm a Ace Wrap compressed gauze guy. I'm just going to have Ace Wraps everywhere. But if this came in my kit, I wouldn't exactly throw them out either. They're fine for somebody.
One use
Yeah,
item.
one use. Hand sanitizer, self-explanatory.
Yep.
Then we got poison ivy, oak. You're going to deal with this a lot. Contact dermatitis is the thing. I don't know how well this formula is. I don't know. But
I use plantain in the field.
I used to use Xanthel because the Army had it for free and it was everywhere.
Right.
And I remember throwing away whole boxes of that stuff because it expired.
Right.
And then when I got out as a civilian, I went to go buy some, and it was like $50 a tube. I was like,
Oh my
man.
God! Yeah, you don't realize how
Yeah,
expensive
I
some
threw
of this
away
stuff
like
is
a
until
Ferrari's
afterwards.
worth of stuff, you know, not even knowing it. But chem lights are good, not necessarily for lighting up what you're doing, but for marking your position. Or maybe I'm in this spot and I need to put a chem light out so that the ambulance knows turn down this driveway, not this driveway. You know, they're good to have.
What about
We
my
used them to-
favorite story about chem lights is tell them about when you just need to give someone something to do. Remember that?
Yeah. So sometimes
the
if I'm
thing.
dealing with a mass casualty, I got people panicking and they want to help, but since they don't have any skills and they don't know what's going on, they can't help. Sometimes what I have been known to do is crack the old chem light, and I'll tell a group of them to stay over here and be prepared to signal stuff in, and really they're just standing in the corner with chem lights,
Yeah.
right? But it makes them feel. It makes it feel like they're participating
doing
and they're being
something.
helpful and useful, and it's not. And it's not to be mean to them. It's not talking down to them. It's controlling them in a way where I can
You're being
handle
nice about
the
it, yeah.
casualties. But yeah, I'm guilty
So
of
if Joe ever hands you a chem light, it's this nice way of saying,
go away.
please go away.
Don't go too far, but go away.
I mean, if we have to, we'll just knock you out.
And something
seriously.
that is good to have is the iPro. Look, spurts happen. Everybody has AIDS. Everybody has hepatitis. So if I'm going up to a person I don't know and I intend to render first aid, like I even keep goggles on me now.
All the time, yeah. That's exactly why I have these.
Because it happens. It doesn't look like it's spurting until you grab it to look at it, and then it spurts. You're like, okay, well. But
they puke
iPro's
on you.
good. Yeah, it's just good stuff to have. iPro, the chem lights, like, and as I'm forming kind of a better general picture of it, I think it's a good first aid kit. I
Yes.
wouldn't call it a trauma kit.
No.
It's got the
It
stuff.
touches on it.
Yeah, it's got some emergency stuff in there in
Touches on
case
it.
stuff happens. But in defense of the guy who packed the bag, you know, probably 75 or 85% of the stuff you do is going to be this level of first aid and boo-boo care and snivel
Agreed.
care. And then in that sense, I do think it's a fairly good thought out bag. I've got no complaint. I'd switch out a few things. I don't know if that's preference on my part.
It's totally your preference because I do the same thing. I mean, a lot of the things you said resonated with me because if you go and look at my jump bag right now, I have more ace bandage. I have a lot more of the sterile dressings.
And that boils down to just what I'm comfortable using. But some stuff like the Coban, I just
this one
I'm
being
never going to use.
exposed like
It's never
that.
going to happen. And then the medical tape, I think is. I'm
think
just
I'd
being picky.
rather have electrical tape myself personally.
Yeah, something Gorilla Tape. Just because the medical tape, just the glue sucks on medical tape. That's why those hyphen chest seals are good because they have it's hydrogel.
Right.
It's
Hydrogel. Yes.
Hydrogel is the stuff we used to use for door charges, but that's also the stuff that's on the EKG paddles. And look, buddy, it works on the hairy chest and the sweaty patients.
There's a lot more hairy people out there. You just don't realize it too until
The glucometer's
you
smart.
get into somebody.
The gloves.
I liked that. The glucometer, that was good.
I didn't keep that in my trauma kit, but I always had it in my I would have my
Your
trauma kit
stomp
on
bag.
me, and then I would have like a vehicle bag within the vicinity because unlike most medics, I did have to deal with geriatrics and pediatrics. You know, if there was a hostage rescue situation, well, those were the hostages. So I wasn't allowed to kind of flush my ACLS and other reasons.
Another thing too, you know, this is pretty cool. You could hang this up.
I like the overall shape of the bag and the volume. I think it's a good size. As I get older, I move away from Molly.
Me too. It was the rage back in the day.
And it's great if you're running with body armor.
Yeah.
But you know, just kind of looking around. If I'm working in the continental United States, you know, why can't I just have an LBE or a vest or something? I don't know that.
All right.
I think that's shooter's choice and preference.
I think we have gone through the entire kit now. I don't think, have we missed any hidden compartments that
I don't think so.
didn't see?
It's got a packing list, which is good because if you use something out of your kit,
Now you can do your
you need to
inventory?
replace it. you need to replace it.
That's one of my problems with kits like this is, you got a lot of one-use items here. I have bulking things, like my 4x4s, for example. I buy just a huge box of them. I used to go to a closet and get all of that stuff, and like you said, it's expensive. But now I buy in bulk, and I just put in 8 to 10 or whatever it is, whatever kit that I'm running. I just like to have bulk stuff on me, especially for controlling bleeding. But like I think you said, I think this is a great first aid kit, and I think it expands a little bit towards professionals. I don't think everybody's going to know how to use like a ring cutter.
Yeah, I think it's a good in between. Like if I had to go, take care of some Boy Scouts or like I said, somebody's soccer match or something, I'd be comfortable with this.
And I like that he has an official cat tourniquet in here. I think that's groovy.
Yeah, because stuff happens.
Yep, it does happen. I typically carry 2 of those, though. I don't know about you.
Yeah,
you could use this as a base, and then you could expand on it. And something that I'm always telling people, if you have personal medications, especially if it's life-saving stuff, then you need to have those medications on you. So this might be something like in a Boy Scouts. You were with the Scouts too.
Stuff like the dressings and the tourniquet. And so I wouldn't look at it like this is where my tourniquet is. I would look at it as I have my trauma kit, and there's a spare tourniquet in the first aid kit, and there's spare dressings. I wouldn't look at any of the trauma supplies in here as my primary so much as, okay, it's just nice to know I got an extra 1 or 2 here and there.
Yeah, and I think, that's the message y'all need to hear out of this or whatever. This, I think a lot of people look at this like it's I bought this, like it's done. I have the couch problem taken care of. My first aid kit is complete.
I think it's a good first aid kit.
Yeah.
But it's not a trauma kit.
It's not a trauma kit.
And just by looking at it, I think that was the stated intent. So
it was
I
pretty
think it
light,
makes its tent.
too. It wasn't a lot of weight.
No, it's the jack of all trades, master of none. There's just enough to cover kind of most everything you're going to encounter, but not a lot of anything to where you can sit on a patient for 12 or 20. It's not meant for that. I think it's meant for the Boy Scouts and the soccer game, and throw it in your vehicle for when little Johnny gets a boo-boo.
Yeah.
So what's the advantage of buying a kit versus building a kit? So pros and cons of buying versus building. Quickly.
You want to start?
Okay, so
there's a lot.
So buying a kit sometimes is convenient, especially if it's a fairly decent generalized inventory like this. I think there's a benefit in just buying the kit and being okay with the content that's in it. Like, I don't know what I'm going to deal with. I just need to have a little bit of everything. I think buying a kit like this will get the job done. Whereas if I know I'm going to be dealing with my dudes and I have I have to keep them healthy, save their lives, I'm probably going to build a kit tailor-made to that purpose. I'm going to build a purpose-made kit. But so the cons of buying this kit is that you get what it comes in. The pros are when you buy a pre-made kit like this, it's fairly general. It's kind of nice. You're never going to have everything you need, ever.
No, never.
So making do with it is more than enough. Again, for me, because I know how to do some field medicine, in general, I'm just going to make my own bag. But me making my own bag shouldn't be taken as I don't like this bag. Does that make sense?
You learn a lot from experience, and our experience in the past, like on some kind of disaster scene, mass casualty, whatever, you're going to run out of stuff like that. You're not going to have everything you need for that. You're going to have the improvised stuff in the field, and so a lot of the stuff that's in my jump bag is dedicated towards that. Mm-hmm. Like this is support stuff for when I have to go find sheets, or I'm building stretchers out of whatever it is. I'm using the top of a table or a pallet or, whatever I make the stretcher out of because, we were search and rescue. So we have to go in, we have to find you, then we have to stabilize you, then we've got to do the egress thing. And who knows what I'm going to need in the field. And it's not like you can plan for everything.
No, but in that setting, and I've been kind of in a similar situation, but in that setting, I'm not very merciful and I don't have very good bedside manners. And if you got a boo-boo and you're sick, I don't care. Right? Like what would you do if I wasn't here is my response to a lot of boo-boos I got downrange. And they would say, well, I'd probably wash it with soap and water and put a Band-Aid on it. I'm like, well, we'll go do that.
Go do that. Yeah.
Right? Or doc, my stomach's upset. Like, okay.
I think people need to understand that too. When they talk to first responders, at least mine, right, dealing with the general public, is they're used to the me thing. right? And they expect you to have like this bedside manner, but I got 28 other people that I'm working on here.
Yeah, it's not actually our job to do that. It's our
right.
job is to keep the force up and running. It's not to provide comfort.
Right, stabilize you so we can get you fixed.
But that's not the approach I would take with my own wife and kids. Like if I'm looking at something for my wife and kids, I'd be okay with this bag. Because, you know, then it is about comfort and giving them Barbie Band-Aids. And
right. Well, for kids, yeah, especially, sometimes a little Band-Aid will quieten down and calm a child.
And I have to be careful that, you know, I agree that, like I think we've agreed that, you know, like the fluids, for instance, may not be enough. Well, if you can drive them to the hospital, perhaps in that context, you just need to wash it and you need clean water around.
Okay. These are a nice size, though. I like that. Like, I could totally use that if I had this kit. Like, say I used all of my stuff up in a disaster and somebody's like, I don't know what to do with this, but I have this kit. I would know exactly what to do immediately.
Yeah, like, so for me, when I'm seeing that same wound, I'm thinking, look, I got to sew this up.
Right.
Okay. Well, the average person isn't thinking that. They just need to clean it, and I think that's okay. But yeah, I'm thinking I got to sew this up and sit on them.
So that's what our opinion of this kit is in general. So I guess what we want to know is, what is your opinion of this kit? Like, do you have the training? Do you not have the training? Do you think now, having seen components in this kit, like you need to go get some training? Yes, you definitely do. But we appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Land of Land, your trusted source for extraordinary vacant land across America that expresses your unique, special passions while diversifying your investment portfolio and hedging against runaway inflation. Imagine the thrill and prestige of land ownership, owning a piece of America, making the best investment on earth as simple as an online purchase. Off-the-grid serenity. Pricing from $1,000, payable by credit card. Visit us today at landofland.com, America's premier land wholesaler for over a decade.